Watch! Hey,
Hello, good
what is
evening.
going on, everybody? Um, we have our. Let's see if I can fix that. Does that work? Oh, now it's really messed up. Give me a second, folks.
Oh my god,
Dude, I don't know. I don't know what's happening here. It just, it's Restream. It's doing its thing. But anyway, welcome back to the second watch. We got Ben Gibson on. We're going to bring him in here in just a minute to talk about world building. But let's do that. And then let's do this. Why is it do? We're just not going to do We're just not going to do it tonight because I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway,
Okay, sounds good.
yeah, it is what it is. And probably another effing update with Restream that is not gelling the way. Whatever. So, guys, happy 4th of July weekend. Where I'm at, the 4th of July will begin in about an hour and a half. There's probably some fireworks going on somewhere, someplace. And I hope you're all got a tasty beverage to join us this evening. I hope you're also doing some fun stuff this weekend. I know I personally will be barbecuing like crazy tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Gary, what are you doing? Anything?
Well, I just got to do this. I know nobody cares. It's got nothing to do with gaming, but we have this friend who once a year has to go see her mother in Colombia. Right? She leaves, and every year she goes. We're like, oh, I wonder if she is ever going to come back. Are we going to see her again? But she always comes back. This year, part of her trip, she lands. She takes a cab as far out of town or a bus as far out of town as she can. Then she has got to buy a motorcycle because that's the only thing that will make it through the mountains for 8 hours so she can see her mom. And her mom decided to give her these to give to us. So these were on the back of a motorcycle in Colombia, in a backpack, and they made it all the way here unbroken. So that's all I got.
Why
This weekend?
why did you get a little coffee tea set?
Because we drink coffee like barbarians in America.
Is that what she said?
And she did say that, and she needs us to know that this is the first step in changing our ways.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was in her backpack on a motorcycle. Anyway, in Colombia.
Real quick, as far as news goes, Bad News Bards is doing an Independence Day stream on Sunday the 5th, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'll be Gary and I will be on there. I don't know what time. I know the stream is going from like 8 to 11. There's going to be giveaways. Jeff, thank you so much for inviting us. We really appreciate it. So I hope everyone goes and checks it out. That's Bad News Bards. Look it up. But I don't know any other news. Yeah, Watsy's been like quiet.
They've been quiet. There's no news until Watsy fucks up.
Yeah,
they've got to do something bad, and then we have news. But no, there's no real news. We made characters for last night. We made characters for a new Supers game we're gonna do.
Looking forward to that.
And other than that, man, I got nothing.
I got nothing either. Yeah. Okay.
Moving
on. We should get our guest on. He's probably been, aside from Brian, the most featured. Of course, we don't feature Brian. He just kind of shows up. Anyway, Ben, welcome back.
What's up, Ben?
Take a watch, man. Good to see you, man.
Eventually I'm just going to show up too.
Show up when you want.
Yeah, might as well.
Brian.
We got our first super chat. Disco Barbarian. Good to see you, brother. $5. Yard Dog Brothers and Sword Sisters. Crazy week. Been world building a Sword and Planet world on X. So this is interesting. Happy Independence Day. Entertain me. Well, I'm sure we will.
Okay.
So it's always good to see you, man. Thank you for the super chat.
Thanks for being here, Disco.
So those of you who don't know, Ben, I'm sure you do because we've had him on before. But he's got he and his wife have a book out, Freedom's Vow. It's on Amazon. Please go check it out. I have my physical copy waiting in the wings. So, and
I thought your girl was going to be here tonight. What's up, dude?
She is with the older kids watching Freedom right now. She is watching fireworks.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm back at the house with the little guy who doesn't quite, can't quite manage the late nights yet, but she's with the kids having a good time forth.
Good for you guys. So Ben, we've been talking about world building. Every podcast, stream, everything that has to do with D&D talks about world building. And me and Matt thought it would be a good idea to do this series, not really a series, sort of informal, just so we can get world building as a clickable title. And
Yeah.
you were amongst the very first that we thought of having on. And I'm curious how much different you're going to be than the last guy. We had Rob on for the first one.
And Rob had, from an OSR perspective, he had some controversial takes.
Very much so.
But I'll be honest, I kind of agreed with some of them. But anyway, but that's the kind of the point of this series. Like, get creators on to talk about their approach and have this conversation that hopefully our viewers can then learn something. Maybe they agree, maybe they don't, but that's the whole point of the conversation. So this will be interesting.
So I'm assuming most of your games, they take place in your own world. How many worlds have you created? Where do you want to start, Ben? What world are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so I've created a bunch of worlds. For writing stuff, Karen and I work together usually, and then for the gaming stuff, she plays in all my games, but she usually she doesn't want to know what is there, so she's usually listening. I have run other people's worlds. I usually run stuff that's not heavily I did a fairly long. I did a 2.5-year campaign set in the Fall from Heaven world, which was a Civilization 4 mod. This dude had this incredibly creative world, with gods, and one of the gods fell and the world was plunged in the ice because it was the goddess of fire, and it was an awesome place. And so I took some of the old they had the big maps from Dungeon Magazine, the ones that were regional maps. I took a bunch of those and built my own stuff in there. So I've done a lot of that, but if you want to kind of say what I've been doing most of my gaming in, it's actually, you see it there in the little corner. It is the World of Coldlight. That's actually where I run my big West Marches game. That's where I do most of the stuff. We've written a little bit in it actually, but we the Coldlight world has been mostly my RPG place for long dadgum time. It's, I guess, not as long as some people, but it's probably been playing in it for about call it 10 years. So it's been fun.
So it's had some time to grow and everything. So just out of curiosity, did you have a lot of guys that talk about world building? Did you build a world, or did you build a dungeon or a town or?
So I kind of am the guy who builds worlds. I mean, I kind of love to do that just because I nerd out. Now, I'm not somebody who says you have to do that. You don't have to do that at all. If you want to start a game, if you feel like you just want to build a dungeon and have a little village next to it and then kind of grow everything out, figure stuff out, that's great. That is probably the original way of playing. It's I very much respect it, but for me personally, I've always loved world building. I would do that even if I wasn't playing with other people. I'd come up and imagine stuff. So I think that for me, it's always been starting with the world and then putting stuff in.
Yeah.
On that, so when you first started gaming, though, was there a particular setting that you gravitated towards that maybe influenced what you did, down the road in terms of world building, with what you were saying with Coldlight? Was there something in particular that struck you when in your younger years as a game master?
I'm trying to think of what else is. So actually, the way I world build a lot is just I kind of think about speculative history, so both history stuff and then also future stuff. So the Coldlight setting, I guess I should kind of go into that. It is You said you're going through dying Earth. It is, I guess, technically what you would call a dying Earth,
Okay.
except it's the other way around. It's not dying by ice. It's dying by it has gone into most of the world is completely charred as a husk. There's a vast steam wall across most of it. Basically, the only lands that are still viable are within the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle. So those are the only temperate places left in the world. So everything, kind of comes there. So I've talked before about I love real world geography. And so, the first place was kind of a Greenland, like a green Greenland. You've seen the Antarctica map without ice, that looks like the perfect fantasy.
Right.
I've done stuff in the Canadian archipelago. I ran a really long stuff in like some of the Russian isles, but basically it's real world geography, but it's all temperate. And so you get to explore that. It's not something you're familiar with. But the coolest part of it is the cold lights. So half the year, I have, when I'm playing a game, it tracks with the actual calendar, which means that right now they're in the southern hemisphere. They're in a place in basically a Antarctic area, which means right now we're doing this in July. It is dark right now. It is complete Arctic night. They do not have any sunlight at all. And then the cold lights are aurora borealis, super intense aurora borealis, basically like a full moon. That's kind of the only way they can see anything. But obviously, it's completely. I mean, they can't see anything if it's snowy or anything like that.
Sure.
So, kind of going through that cycle, that kind of built up. So, what does the world look like from there? And again, that's a ground up kind of a way to do it.
No, well, but that leads into a question that I had, because I find that when I'm world building, I typically build an area. I don't necessarily always go for the world, but there's always like a concept, right? There's always like, I want to know, how did people get here, right? Like, what makes this place? Why would they be here? What makes this place a good place to live? Like, what is the concept that makes this world different than that world, or this place different from that? You're in Antarctic with everything being a husk. Like, it sounds like you're building from like a theme or an idea.
Yes. So that was that's kind of part of it. And then the other part of it is magic is a little different. So they all casting is done by the mages basically etch their spells in ink on their arms. And then it's very artistic glyphs. So they have to work on that. So when they're prepping their spells, they're literally just drawing their spells. Mm-hmm. And when they cast, they hold it up. There's a flash and it fades, although there's a silvery network of scars that usually gets left. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff where, the wizards are artistically talented too. They all have the art and math both matters for that. And so there's a lot of aspects of what is kind of left of civilization. There's remnants. There's old remnants. This is not like 1,000 years from now. We don't know how far in the future, way beyond, way beyond anything. Like, there are mysterious artifacts. There's a mysterious road. They call this, there's creations of the old men that you run into. But, how old are the old men? So that ancient history, it's not, somebody was mentioning, it's not the Jack Vance level of pulp where you're always going to bump up. There might be a laser gun, or there might be there might be a revolver you find. It's way older. It's way past that. But kind of the theme is, a lot of it is like working on art, working on rebuilding science a little bit, but also, the fact that everything is tighter, everything's smaller. There's been vast amounts of fall behind everybody. So a lot of it is kind of coming out. A lot of it is kind of coming out to, how are they going to be rebuilding? What's humanity rebuilding? So that's what kind of I get excited about all that. Oh, super chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's been kind of waiting in the wings. Thank you, Agile Monk, $5. Ben and Karen, awesome all around. But Ben, are you regrowing the stash and the light beard? Looks thinner than usual, but looking good, my friend. Agile, thank you so much.
So I'm a person who shaves once a week. So this is my once a week. I just keep it. I keep it on there and it grows.
I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah. So this is the I shaved this morning look for Agile's question there. Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
I usually cut my hair right before the show. I'll let it go this week.
I see. Oh wow, there's actually some gray there. Yeah.
So, kind of going to what you said earlier about like, hey, if you're interested in just having a dungeon and a starting village, that's cool, and kind of growing out. It sounds like you may have had a concept in mind first, and Gary was kind of like getting into this, and I guess that's sort of where I'm going. Obviously, you can start. I have a village, I have a dungeon, and then just sort of slowly build out. I'm of the opinion that it helps to have something sort of conceptual that kind of helps inform the background lore. Is that kind of where you started with like your cold light world here? Like, I have this thing happened, and then even if it was only just like a paragraph, right? Like,
right,
kind of went from there. Is that kind of where you started?
Kind of, yeah. So it's kind of that look of like, what's the setting? So what is the setting, and then what are the kind of the questions that come out from there? So that's where it is. Yeah, nobody has to shave, to be honest. So they didn't give me
There are no
they didn't give me a
rules.
list.
The second watch, we have no.
For all we know, the goblins are invading. We're
I'm
too
not
busy
wearing
having a chat.
pants, bro. Anyway.
Yes. So, but yeah, like starting with, it helps to start with some sort of concept, even if, so I have different regions. I also like pop them in, and those regions are going to have a concept. Like the region where they did a lot of stuff, a few years ago was Lost Colony was kind of the concept, a fallen lost colony. There was a bunch of undead from the former colonies, and then there were, cannibal tribes. There were cannibal tribes that were the remnants of that last lost colony because it happened 100 years ago. So that was kind of the central concept. And then you're right. Once you start that, then there's all kinds of little stuff pops up, like, oh, so this dungeon makes sense. If you're going to have a bunch of cannibalistic lost colonists, that kind of says what kind of magic items they'll have. That kind of says what kind of dungeons you'll be going into. That kind of says, you're going to be in one area that's the lost colony that's going to be full of undead and shadows. They hated that place. It sucked. And then there's like, so what happened to the colony? What did they do? How did they get all this up? What did they open? And then they found, oh crap. Well, the reason why the colony is lost, they cracked a hole into a mega dungeon, and out came all kinds of evil. All the wolves suddenly got possessed. There's disasters, but all that, you have that initial thought, and then that kind of informs where you're going through the rest of it. Because there's a mega dungeon in that area too. Like that's the one I'm looking on, eventually publishing, that mega dungeon plus this region that I'm talking about. But all of that, it comes from that first thought. So what about a lost colony here? What would that look like?
Yeah.
And yes, the usual to another comment, this world sucks. This world sucks is a good thing for adventurers. You should say, this is awful. Everything is painful here.
Yeah.
We're in trouble.
Well,
what's going to happen? Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why James Raggi chose the 17th century Europe. He's like,
yes,
the 1600s was like the worst time to be alive, and of course that fits with the whole vibe of Lamentations. So yeah, that definitely plays a role into it. But hearing you sort of like discuss like what you've been doing with your world and the things that you've been doing, consequences. And not just consequences of player, like as a world builder, like you've made the decision to do this, whatever this is, right? What does that mean? Like that seems really important to you. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing. World builders have to be able to give it up. Now, I'm not. So some people do the what's the Ben Milton game, or Ben Robbins microscope. Some people, you know what microscope is, right?
I do
It's kind
not
of
actually.
so. I've heard people start a game. Actually, played in somebody's game. They started. Microscope is made by Ben Robbins, the guy who did the original West Marches. It's a game. It's a
Oh,
game
okay.
where everybody sits down and they kind of like tell each other the story of the world, and they develop it all together. It's designed so everybody in the world can kind of develop each part of it. If you like that, that's fine. I think most game masters are control freaks, and they have their own plan of how it starts. They have everything in mind.
Indeed.
Yes. But whatever, however you start it, once those players get there, you have to be able to say, okay, so I started up everything. You can't change the past. That's why I tell them, you can't change the past. I know the past. You figure out the past. No, you're not going to be, we're not story gaming here to say, well, I think that there was actually a second empire that everybody wore pink at. And there happened to be, they were really good at making rifles, and that's why I think I should be a gunslinger. No,
Right.
but as soon as they're playing, as soon as they are actually playing the game, they need to be able to change every part of the world they interact with within reason. And again, they're not saying this is a new fact of the world, but they're saying my dude does this, and you say, okay, that's what your dude does. And
Yeah.
often my dude does this, and it leads to hilarious death. But
Sure.
sometimes, as in the case of the Lost Colony area, it leads to this one guy. He started off as this horrible statted commoner. 3d6 down the line, he had the worst set of stats. And because he had such a bad set of stats, he tossed himself into everything, hoping desperately to die to get a new character. He never succeeded at dying.
Damn,
Somehow he managed
love
to
those
level up
characters.
great. And
that's awesome.
yes. And then he made friends. He discovered new things because he was always putting himself out there because he was trying so hard to die. And he's now the king of that area. He is 100% the king. There's a kingdom of the Isles. He is the king of it. There are other players who are members of the kingdom who have different parts of what they do. And that's where it is. I did not expect the player kingdom to happen. Now I always had stuff to enable it. I always had, if they wanted to do that, there was always stuff in place, but they absolutely 100% had to. Like, if he did that, okay, that's where it goes. And it was awesome. And the kingdom has started to expand through portals. And in the place where they're doing more quests now, they're going to be bringing in their super high level places from the kingdom, because every winter solstice, there's a portal that opens up for 8 hours. In the heart of the mega dungeon, there's a place where they can send people just for 8 hours into another region. And so already being like, so can we communicate through portals to this other region and bring them here? And all that happens. All this is their scheming. I had the pieces there for them, but they're the ones who figured all that stuff out. You got to let them do it. Once all the pieces are there, you have to have it.
So there's almost like, and I've said this before, and I think this is 100% true. The player's 5-page backstory is to the dungeon master, as the dungeon master's 15-page lore document is to the players, right? So there's sort of like this selflessness that the game master sort of has to sort of embrace. Be like, I have this thing, I have this idea, but once we press play on the campaign, it's out of my hands on where it goes. And I like how you actually said, I know the history, and it's your job to figure out the history, but the future is in the player's hands. And I think that's I like that. I like that a lot. But so when we're talking about, but before we get to like pressing play, and we're in Ben Gibson's mind as he's sitting down working out these things. He's got some concepts. He's got some whatever. What are some of the influences? What do you look towards when you're sitting down and saying, okay, I'm about to take pen to paper, right? Or I'm about to start typing out some document for this next campaign or whatever, this world that I'm designing. What do you look towards to help fill out those ideas and take that idea, the concept or whatever, and fill it out?
Yeah. So basically, okay. So I'm a tremendous history nerd. I know this might shock people, but so, so that informs. Gary's just
Ben
disapproving.
saying I'm a bit of a blank nerd will never shock me. You will always know more than me at whatever subject you set your mind to. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm a huge history nerd, so
Yeah.
that informs a lot of what I do for any kind of fantasy stuff. Anytime I'm doing a fantasy world building, I'm like, so I think I look at empires in history, which I really think are started by geography. A lot of the time, like people matter, but people are often influenced by geography too. And when you look at a map, when you look at geography, you can kind of figure out, okay, so where did people come into? How did the people grow up in here? Um, if they happen to be next to a vast steppe, how did they deal with the constant set of nomads always coming in and
Yeah.
wiping them out? So a lot of how I do the initial development of what the polities are, what the people's cultures is like, I kind of look at real world analogies, and then I say, okay, so how's it going to be? How's it going to be different here, though? How's it going to be different by kind of the initial stuff? So I guess it's funny. I guess we took half an hour for I should say my very first thing, the most important thing, map. Map. Having a map is how I start.
So yeah, so I wanted to create a really isolated group of people. I wanted to create a campaign where the town was very isolated. Maybe it was more than a town. They'd be level 5 before they got out of this, region. How am I going to manage that? And it was all geography. It was in the map. It was, well, there's mountain ranges here. And then from that, it was like, well, how did they get there? And all of those little geography questions for me, I think are real important. The geography determines a ton, and the map helps. I know a lot of people say, well, just do your town and just do your dungeon. And that's a great way to do things. And that's how I'm doing it with my kids right now. We have a town, we have a dungeon. That's all we need. Adult players are different. They're going to try different. They're going to have more mature thoughts about the game. How did this happen? How's this? How's that? So I think geography is the key. And I don't know that you need to map out the whole world, but at least your region, at least.
Yes. And I think that's a big part. I think people go to world way too fast. We call it world building, but unless it's kind of a wacky game, you're not going to be seeing the whole world, or at least not going to see the whole world a lot. But region is important. But when you look at the regions, so look at the Greek, the Aegean, like Greece and Turkey, a small part of Greece and Turkey. When you go down to Crete, Cyprus, that is a tiny little section. That is smaller than most U.S. states. That is an itty bitty little region. But there's mountains, there's rivers, there's oceans, there's all kinds of like cities, there's tons and tons of history, there's myth. You could put 100 different campaigns in there, in that tiny little region. I think way too many people jump to, I got to make the entire world. I've got to make my entire world map. When that's not what you need for a campaign. You need to figure out the region. Now the world will inform what the region looks like if they have weird stuff, like with Coldlight, where most of the stuff has these long days of summer and like long winter nights. That kind of informs a lot of stuff. But the geography itself, you can constrain that. And I think people get way too much. I got to build this entire huge world, and I have to have all the history. I have to know everything. Look at a region. In the Sky Shadow Isles, that the Isle campaign area. Like I said, I say campaign, the entire world is always there, and they bounce to different places. There's portals, but they're mostly in this region for 5 years. Yeah. That's the Franz Joseph Islands. The place is like 100 by 200 miles, an archipelago, which there is so much stuff in there. They still didn't run out of everything. There's so much stuff in that amount of distance.
Great Britain alone, it's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
200 miles across at
Yep.
most, and then I think long it's not even 1,000, is it?
Yeah.
How many myths and legends and everything comes out of this, fantasy wise, Western fantasy, and it's tiny. The last OSC game that I ran, do you remember one of my big faults was I underestimated the 24-mile hex.
Yeah.
I really thought you guys would go to the fourth one. You never made it past the third. It just doesn't happen. So, world building and Ben, I think this is kind of what you're saying is, one, it should be the world that the characters are going to be active in, right? I live in this part of Texas, and if I go 200 miles down the road, it's a whole other world. Like there's different, accents, there's different customs, whatever. Know your area. That is going to be your character's world until at least level 3, 4. Yeah, good on you.
Yeah, I'm yes, I kind of agree with that. But I'm going to disagree slightly. I think it's good to have like an idea of like, and that's why I like the idea of having like a concept of like an understanding, even if it's only like a paragraph long in your brain. Like this world is the result of magical mishap, which has destroyed the ecology, and people are huddled around oases to survive. Dark Sun, right? And then just sort of build from there. I think that will help inform all your decisions as the players reach out. So, and this is why I kind of like go back to like Rob's when we talked to Rob about this, because like he got a little shit because he started talking about story. Like, oh, I think you can have like these story arcs and stuff. And I saw the chat and some of the responses in the, and I'm like, I actually think he was on to something there because it was related to the lore.
Well, he was also talking about one of the things he talked about that I thought was kind of brilliant was the NPC stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not necessarily your character stories, it's the stories going on around that inform the world. So yeah. But he used the word story, so they jumped on him.
Of course, yeah. So well, on that note, so when you Ben are like, when you're developing this like world, like did you have NPC ideas? Like we talked about myth, like did you have some of that like kind of go into this like long history that like is hinted at in your like little paragraph of like what this design is? Like did you already have that in mind? Did you have something that you worked on, even if it's just on a regional basis?
Yeah, I did have some of those. So I do have I had some story. I understand why people freaked out about the word story, because that implies you should never have a foregone conclusion.
Right.
But what I did have was so I had an idea. I had an idea at the very bottom of the Cairn of Night, the mega dungeon. There's a door, the final gate, and that final gate leads to, I believe, I feel bad, I should know, the third seal of the apocalypse, the one with all the locusts that come forth, with Apollyon, who and they're there to torment a full third of the earth. Like I had that final gate is opening up that. I was like, there is something there. I had a super arrogant race of old men who thought that they could harness these demons, that they could use them. And that's why this whole complex was there. So no, there wasn't a predetermined outcome, but there were definitely some situations and characters there. Like the final guardian of the place was almost like he was lich-like. He had but he was so old that he had plans. He had old ancient plans, but he was very, very set in his ways for how to deal with it and how to stop anybody from breaching it. And so there was a story kind of dealing with him because the gate was failing, but also trying to stop the apocalypse. The thing is, where it's a bad story is if you're like, well, no matter what, guess what? You're going to be happy friends. Well, in the main game, they did manage to avert the apocalypse. When I play tested it earlier, so I also play tested it in Axe, that section of it. They didn't. The playtest ended with them accidentally unleashing the demons and failing to stop them. And I was like, well, good job, guys. You've just unleashed a literal apocalypse. So I was going to say, if they had done that in the main game, I was like, I'm going to have to stop for a little bit and discover which parts of the world are going to be afflicted by a vast legion of demons that are there to torment a third of the earth. I'm going to have to figure out some stuff. But that's basically, the story could have gone either way. The story is what happened. The story is what happened in the past. So the story was they managed to stop it. The story is they managed to stop it by one of the players who was a very, very high level magic user figured out a way to control it and took upon the crown himself and is now bound to the gate. And he is now the guardian of the gate himself. And he's now stuck there. And he realized he was good to do that. I didn't plan for any of that. None of that was where my plan was. That was his stuff. That was his decisions, because that was the kind of player he was, and that was the kind of that's what he wanted to do. But there was absolutely other players that would have 100% been like, okay, so how can I make the apocalypse work for me?
Sure, yeah.
And they would have tried to go other ways. Matt,
I probably would have been one of those players.
Yes.
In light of my Axe 2 character and my Hyperborea character. Real quick, before you comment on my assholishness as a player, I got to get to a super chat. Agile Monk, $5. Thank you, sir. Drive Through RPG has Ben's content, and I highly recommend a visit there. Lots of things you can find useful. That is true. That is absolutely 100% true. You'll find the Adventure Site contest stuff there. Some of the stuff he's been doing there. Go check it out. It's fantastic stuff. I actually wrote a review on his Shadow Dark module, which you can go to on my blog, Lord Mattias at WordPress or whatever the address would be. We actually have a question from the chat. Warp Plots asks, okay, real question. When world building becomes just write a fucking book, when is that red line GM must be slapped into reality of a 6,000 page manuscript? I think what he's asking is, where do you cross the line, and where is that line?
So it is not a book, but the campaign document is pretty big. It is actually, I can look it up right now. It is so it's only 100 pages in that one, the campaign document. But most of that's actually a bad example. Most of that are keys for all the hexes, because I have 184 hexes all keyed, and the Mega Dungeons keys. So the backstory stuff itself is 10 pages. And I know a lot of the stuff, but you can keep all that pretty low, pretty small. But then a lot of that story is also in the world building, in the hex entries, in the individual keys. That's kind of where it kind of comes from. But that's actually kind of how we deal with the world, especially with the world before Wikipedia. We didn't know, most of us didn't, before Wikipedia happened, most of us didn't really have a history of the world or know what the world was based on some sort of big, huge book narrative. We just got little bits and pieces. Grandpa's friend, Uncle Steve, told me this other thing. There's this song that references something. There's all these little bits and pieces and rumors, basically, almost like a rumor table. That's where the story comes in. The story comes in and is delivered in little bits and pieces, which is kind of how, as an aside, that's kind of how a book should also do it. A book honestly should also just not dump it, but should also put it in organically like that. But for the writing of the book, if you're writing a 6,000 page manuscript, then I certainly hope that's what you do for fun. Again, because that's not what you have to do at all.
Right.
You can just say it's fantasy Rome. Deal with it. Like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's fine. And that's absolutely fine.
Well, and I
So
also think you hit on it a little earlier when you said, the story is what happens in the past.
mhm.
So, as a GM, if you're having fun writing a 6,000 page history of your world, as long as you understand that once your player set foot in that world, it no longer belongs to just you.
Yeah.
I'd say you haven't crossed that line. I'd say you're
Right.
doing pretty well. You probably need a second hobby, but other than that, you're doing pretty well.
Well, I've been a firm believer, and this is a conversation that Gary and Brian and I have had going back to our Game Master Getaway podcast days, where I am the guy that will advocate for, if you're a game master, write that lore out, write it out, so it's in your brain, and you know it backwards and forwards. So when the players stumble upon it, you can just spit it out and they learn something about your world. Like I'm cool with that. Like I think that's cool. I just don't do the lore dump. That's bad. No one wants to see that. So yeah, I think but I think Gary, you put it best. Like if you're cool with writing 6,000 pages or not pages, but words or whatever, as long as you're cool with the fact that the player's going to change it up, you're not doing anything wrong.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give you an argument against writing a ton of lore. And this is just for me, but it does prove that Matt's wrong. So the thing is
I'm never wrong. I'm only mistaken. Anyway.
I think once people write something down, that becomes canon in their head. And when you're playing a game of discovery, exploration, discovery, adventure, and everything, I kind of want it loose. Like, yes, this is what happens until a player gives me a different idea that might be better, or until something happens. I don't want it to be so tight that, if I change a thing here or there, it's going to screw things up. That's just my opinion. Matt is he likes things real.
Well, Gary has opinions. They're not always accurate.
My opinions are incredibly accurate.
So actually, kind of, it's a little bit of, so if you have a general shape of a world in your mind, maybe you don't have to write it down. You have the power to answer a question. Like you have the power to make it up. Like I don't like fudging die rolls. I don't like making up stats on the fly. But if they're asking me a world question and I don't know the answer, I can make it up. I know the general thing and I can just, that's a general thing as a game master you should be able to come up with fast.
Yeah.
And so Jesse Fain's comment just came in. There too, like came in as I was saying that. Yeah, a lot of game mastering is that improv. And the thing is, once you make it up, now I will say, once you make it up, it's probably a good idea to write that down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now after you make it, then you should definitely write it down, because you don't want to contradict yourself. Although if you do contradict yourself, you can just say, so one of those two rumors was wrong, then, wasn't it? Frantically typing, oh crap. But you can definitely kind of goose the history, because we're talking about the history, the story, the flavor of it, which will come to other stuff. Don't let my players know this. I totally came up with the fact that there were 7 apocalypses in this world prophesied. And I just said that on a whim when they were in a dungeon where there were a bunch of star charts, and one of the star charts was grayed out. And they're like, "Oh, that's the gate, and that's the one that's happening now. Potentially." They're like, "Oh no, what are these other 6 apocalypses?" And so now the players, not the characters, but the players have like, there are 6 more apocalypses that threaten the world. What are they? What are they going to do? And I was like, oh, because it all fits. I mean, it all fits with this, this post, it all fits with the Coldlight world. Yeah, of course there'd be prophecies of that. But I just made it up at that moment. I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. Then I had to write it down. And then I was like, that's a good idea. So with what I do know of the world, what would those prophesied apocalypses be? And so that kind of lets you build more of it. But all of that's, again, in the past. I'm not going to change. And suddenly it's Tuesday. All right. And now there's a 7-headed dragon. One of the apocalypses. Sorry, buddy. That's lame. But if you want to change the history stuff or add more to the history stuff, that's kind of a great opportunity.
I think that's actually one of the flexibilities of not doing like some kind of crazy ass lore dump with your campaign world. Like, you have this thing in your head, and like I said, I'm fine. Like, I encourage game masters to write it all down, so you have this document. I'm a kinesthetic learner. If I write it down, I'm going to remember better, right? So like, it's there, but like you just described, if players come up with something and it's like, oh, this actually makes more sense than what I've already written, you can just change things on the fly or behind the scenes or whatever, and just let the players kind of like do whatever. So there's still that collaborative thing going on, but it's still your world. But again, once you press play, you got to be good with whatever the future may hold. So like, yeah, there may be this apocalypse that you think would be really cool if the god of fire comes down, but then the players figure it out and stop it. Well, guess what? The god of fire didn't come down.
Exactly.
Whatever. So yeah.
Well, but there's also one of the great things that keeping it loose, and this has been said this a couple times. I think I've said this. Sometimes your players, they'll do this thing where they go, I wonder if. Do you think this is why? And as a GM, I'm like, sounds pretty good. That's probably that might be why it's happening. So that whole thing about being loose or being able, you can say things and make things up like the apocalypse. Players will always give you good ideas. And sometimes those players you'll have like a little detail and they'll make such a big thing out of this little detail that it can become like frightening and horrifying to them. And that's the best. That's the best. It's very little work and they are so invested. They don't even know.
Womp womp. Poor God of Fire.
Yeah, poor God of Fire.
Actually kind of like that's one of the reasons why the players have a wiki in my game that I've never read. I have never visited it and I will never read it.
Interesting.
Because they have all kinds of speculative theories. They have all kinds of stuff. They've added tons of information. From what they reference, a lot of it's true. But I've told them, and I tell them, I don't go to the wiki. I don't edit the wiki. I don't look at the wiki. That is their player board. They're full of they're full of explanations, full of ideas, full of speculation. I love having that, their own stuff. That is basically how players interact with the world. And I have my own world too. I like the fact that my documents and the wiki never see each other. Because that's kind of a cool.
Interesting.
It's cool because it means they're generating their own rumors.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're really good. There's a lot of times when their speculation actually is pretty darn accurate. And then there's other times when their speculation is complete and utter bull. And it's great. Sometimes they have a bunch of assumptions and they're like, what happened? I thought it was this. And I was like, what do you mean? What is this? They're like, well, I was reading the wiki. I was like, buddy, that's your speculation. I don't know.
Yeah. That is really interesting. And I will tell you right now, Ben, you are a better game master than I. I would be I know I would be tempted. In fact, I would be looking at it just to see. So good on you, brother.
All my players know that we will have a wiki and I will be looking at it. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Good on you though, man. With my Gods of the Forbidden North campaign, we do have a Notion. We're using Notion. And I've encouraged them to add to it and whatnot, but that's like a shared document. So I can see what they're adding and they can see what I'm doing. It's a combination of like house rules, but also information that they've discovered, blah, blah, blah. And they can kind of like add stuff to it. But yeah, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Oh my
number
God,
one.
I'm kind of blown away
That's
by
actually
this.
a
I'm
big
sorry.
thing that we gotta let Matt take this in because
I
I
know.
agree.
I'm just
That's like one of those. What did we learn tonight, kids? We learned.
yeah. And the star and the rainbow. The more you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
just
That's
giving the
actually
players their
quite
own
brilliant.
kind of like rumor space is really cool. It doesn't have to be a wiki or whatever, but letting them have their own channel you don't see, their own like kind of speculation place. Um, I do it in when I'm online stuff. What I will do sometimes it's in a smaller stuff is sometimes online or sometimes in person. If they're coming up with a scheme, sometimes they'll say, "All right, I'm going to go drink or I'm going to go hit the head while y'all plan." Because I kind of like that chance to kind of without my input, without dad
yeah.
being there to tell them what
Sure.
is and isn't
Yeah.
possible. I like the chance for them to kind of come up with that. And usually it's really stupid when I come back, but that's fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my Gods of the North campaign, the Iron Price. I know they have their own like text chat group that I'm not part of. I just assumed they're just bitching about all the crap I keep throwing at them. But to actually have a space where they're developing their own rumors and all that stuff, because I know my guys are not doing that. Because they're power gamers and they're war gamers, so they're just like, I can't believe we can't. This is not fair. But I think that's great because that actually helps facilitate the concept of the living world, right? Because when they're right, it gives them a sense of accomplishment. But when they're wrong, what's the word I'm looking for? It reifies the
Mhm.
world because they're just like, oh, I was wrong, and this thing just kept moving despite what I believed. You know
Right.
what I mean? So I just love that. Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to clip this. This is some
we
good
don't
shit
do
right
shorts
here.
anymore.
Oh, that's right. We don't do shorts anymore because they're bad for the algorithm. But yeah, that's amazing. I think that's great. You have some great players, man. That's awesome.
No, they're great. And I have a large, I have like 50 players. A
Right.
lot. There are also part of that is like the kind of the group, the dynamic that comes up with a big group. There are also totally dudes who come in. I want to have the biggest, heaviest hammer. I want to hit super hard. I had one player in the session last night. He was so excited. He had picked up a Dragonbane longbow, like session one, and he has been waiting for it. And they're like, so guys, there's a problem with this dragon. I think it's a dragon. We're speculating it's a dragon. They're like, dude, do you want to come? Do you want to come? He was like, yes, yes. I don't care how many chips I'm gonna have to cash in with my wife. I'm there. He
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna come to this session. And for him, the biggest thing was he wanted to shoot that bow multiple times. So it's all types of players, and it's good to have that mixture because you don't, oh gosh, it would be really rough to have 50 players who are that invested.
Oh
Like
yeah, no, it's a
that'd be
good problem to
overwhelming.
have.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of opens up a door though about player investment in the world building, like the fact that they're creating their own myths. I mean, really, right? Like even if they're wrong, right? It helps kind of create a reality around your own thing, right? So I guess aside from whatever your players have been doing, like can you speak to what a game master could do to help encourage that? Like any
Hmm.
kind of like, I don't know, like I said, I mentioned Notion. What can a game master do to help encourage the players to sort of like from a technological perspective, whatever, even just structure of the campaign, like um, to help, I don't know, generate that level of investment.
Well, so it really happened. I guess part of it is, it has for one thing, it has to take a long term. Like this is something, it requires time. This is not something that developed year one. This is something that started coming out in late year two, I think.
Yep.
So it takes a while to get to that point. Um, I think it also takes, they have to be able to know they have ownership of the world. And when I say ownership of the world, I don't mean of the backstory. I don't mean of the history of the world, but they have to know that they are writing something into the future of the world. They have to know that at least in this region, they can build something. We haven't had our requisite axe plug yet, so we should do the axe plug. Player kingdoms, player property,
Yes.
that sort of thing is a really good way of doing that, having that
Adventurer,
ability.
Conqueror, King. Yes.
Yeah. If you have that ability to, except I don't believe you have to have, you don't have to tier it. Like, I've had players who have owned a keep at level 2 because the circumstances worked out that way. You don't have to tier it by. That's a little
I
hard
agree.
to tier it like that, which I believe Alex Macros would say as well. But I think it's really important for them to believe that to invest. They have these spreadsheets, man, where they have their fleet profits for their trading fleets and how much that comes in every turn. They have, because I gave them information for the roles for where their business is, what their profits are. And they have like a monthly profit roll where they do that. All that stuff is stuff that they own, that they've built, that they have a stake in. And I think that's where they start having that investment. That's where they start coordinating outside of where I am, because they have all this stuff. Like, I didn't tell them to make a spreadsheet about fleet profits. I didn't, but it's something that just sort of emerged over time. Of course, I've got a lot of nerds with me too. I do play in Huntsville, but it's pretty good that if they have some kind of investment like that, then they're going to start having that speculation, because you don't worry about something you don't care about. You worry about something that's owned. You worry about something that is yours. You start planning like this if you feel like you have a stake in it. And that ability to have a stake in it means that they have to have some sort of power to change the future. I don't think it's possible without giving them that power.
I agree with that 100%, actually. And this is actually, just as a quick digression, one of the frustrations I've actually been experiencing with my Gods of the North campaign. I didn't write the world. That's Rob Alderman, but I absolutely love it. But I have players who are just not used to that sort of emergent story kind of concept, that they like their rails, and they're totally fine with paying their ticket, get on the fucking roller coaster and go. They've really struggled with this. And just recently, hanging out with my friends, I just hey, is everything cool with the game? I'm fine with changing things up, and half the party were like, no, man, we like this. And one player actually said, I sort of feel like we got to get to a point where we can hire people to do the adventuring for us. And I was like, yes, Adventure Conquer King. Yes. You're getting it. You're starting to getting it.
What I was going to say as a quick aside, that's where having a big open table setup works. Players have started hiring lobby player parties to do stuff for them. They've started putting out bounties for lower level stuff, or stuff that the high level guys are too busy to do.
Sure.
They've actually started posting bounties, which I also have lower level. I have a huge spread of levels, and those posted bounties have been great for other parties of players in here. Those other parties get really awesome. There's 1,000 gold, which is like pocket change for the little guy, but they're like, this is huge. This is awesome.
Right.
And being able to have that, which has also been great, because you want to talk about emergent world building. It's really great when they put out a bounty and the party that takes it up is a bunch of chaos goblins, and they get their objective, which was to get some information about this rival city-state. They also sort of accidentally started a peasant rebellion and got a ton of peasants killed.
Yeah.
So, and then they they got really, so that was great, because they're like, oh crap, we should be a little more careful with the quest we put these people on.
Well,
was
it's kind of like a one of those a fine how do you do? Welcome
Yes.
to my world. I'm the game master, and this is what I've been dealing with for years. You're now patron level, and this is now what you get a taste of what I've been dealing with. Yeah. We got a question from Dan, the final arbiter. Ben, are you still taking players to this 50-player world? Sounds amazing. Like, just talk about how this developed, because I know you've been on the show a lot. We've talked a lot. You're a friend of
Yeah.
the show. We're friendly. You know, love having you on. Love talking to you about your insights. But like, I think some people may not know some of your background.
course.
So like,
Yeah.
how did this develop?
Yeah, this developed with, I mean, it developed very simply. Like I had the world already built, and I was like, there's a small region in the world. I think it'd be cool to run something here. Um, I will say, Dan, for the main game, for like the big regular sessions, one big thing is it's always in person. Those are all like in person games that we always play. We play like weekly, sometimes multiple games a week, because I have other DMs who have their own little small sections. But I think in person actually helps a lot for that community build up as well. But what I do for any of my campaigns is I also have most of what I also play for other stuff or one shots. I actually tie back into the campaigns, which so I do have stuff online that I run that is that what happens in those little things is usually set up in the world, and that's like a little one-off that has happened in the world. That's just the thing. And Dan, dadgummit, it's a great place, but our traffic is already murder, man. Nobody needs to move here until we have.
Dan's been running a Hyperborea game on Erudite DM's channel. He's a great game master. I look forward to his game every week. I get to play my villainous character, who's got machinations in Zimbala. He's great, but he's got a lot of insight too. So I'm glad that he's actually participating in this conversation.
Dan's. I don't think I've had the pleasure of being on a show with him, but he's been in chats before too. He knows some of the guys. We were there with Jeff, like Death Angel Shadow.
Yes,
I was talking with them, and Cam, who was on earlier. He knows them. So. But yeah, Dan's a cool dude. I've liked what I've heard from him. He talked to Erudite too. You're a cool dude, Dan. But yeah, but I'll say I'll do the onesies. And I was waiting until Gary came back, because as another example, Gary doesn't have his headphones on.
I was hoping you'd bring this up.
Yeah, I was going to say as a
fun example.
As a fun example,
and I was honored to be a part of it.
Yes, as a fun example of how I use one shots to kind of like play into my campaigns. Gary and Matt both managed to get into I had in the sci-fi game I'm running, they made contact with this resistance. They had made contact with this resistance on this one planet. They coordinated it, and the resistance was like, we'll sabotage the gunships on the world. It's coming. We'll do this. That's what the players knew. So the players in the campaign knew there was going to be the space short, like they were going to try to sabotage the gunships or do something to make sure the gunships didn't come and hit them. And then I was like, that'd be a fun one shot. I was like, Gary mentioned he'd like to see Stars Without Number. I was like, I know some cool dudes. So I also had like Jack McCarthy and Dundermoose. That was a hilarious.
Absolutely,
I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard for like that entire session. But I had a one shot where they were all the resistance. They were all members of the resistance trying to break into the spaceport and either steal or disable the gunships. And this is another classic case of I got to witness it in person. Gary's right. Matt does kill Gary a lot. He is very gung-ho about things.
Dude, that's because I was playing a character that was all about the mission, and it was time to start killing things. You signed up, and soldiers die. Okay?
So, real quick, I want to everybody, Matt, go get a drink.
I do need to get a refill.
Go ahead.
No, you know what? Everybody,
go ahead.
Gary's about to talk shit. Okay, I'll be back.
He's still got his headphones in. He can't handle it.
I'm sure.
I can walk away. I don't mind. Some people need to be GMs more than they need to be players. Some players, regardless of what you're playing their game. Matt has a way of somehow, like, if second level axe dwarf character, he's got a small fucking army. Any game he plays, you gotta. I'm just thinking that he's best as a game master. He's a game master's delight. Like, he'd be fun if I had 8 of him doing a big West Marches thing where everybody was kind of playing against each other at some point, right? But if you've only got one Matt and you got a lot of other players, Matt's a great DM and he is a good player, but he'll keep you on your toes, man. Fucking keep you on your toes.
Yeah,
and he will sacrifice your character for his.
He does absolutely. Not care. I've seen that. I think, as an aside, that's something that somebody who is a GM mostly needs to watch. Like, I work really hard when I'm a player to not do that, because I realize I have the exact same tendencies to just sort of dominate everything, or to like come up with all the schemes. I have that tendency.
Yeah.
So I do work really. I try to come up with one little silly thing so that I'm off to the,
Yeah.
I'm willing to sacrifice myself. I try to work on that, but yeah, I get how it is. But you were both awesome players. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and it's not like a personality flaw. It's one of those things. It's not a bug. It's supposed to be a feature. But when Matt is a player, know that Matt's got shit he has to accomplish.
You're goddamn right.
And
I take
if you want to do something, the other thing is, I will tell you, this happened in the game I ran. If you don't want to do what Matt's going to do, he'll just be like, all right, well, I'm going to go do this. You guys go do that. He does not. You need to be a GM, Matt. You need to be, and maybe I just don't have it in me. Actually, on our Marvel games, it's different because Matt or in our superhero games, when we did the row, but it's a different kind of game. And man,
I thought I was
you were great at the row.
I thought
like
so.
You were, no. Here's the thing. You are a very engaged player, right?
Indeed.
So in the confines of a game where you're playing heroes who are reactive to a situation, like in that context, you're great because you're coming up with the ideas on the spot. And we need this because it's a very, right? But in a game where the characters are proactive.
So what you're saying is, I'm ambitious, and you want me to be your player because I am going to make things move in your world. I am going to change the very fabric of that campaign. Anyway, I appreciate the accolades. Anyway,
just strap in, boys. Strap in. We're looking for mushrooms tonight. That's all I know. with Matt's army at level 2. All right.
Sorry, I realized that was kind of a aside from the world building topic, but I think
my bad.
It does kind of build up.
Well, I think it's to your bringing us into your sci-fi game. Like to this day, I think that was wonderful. Like I love it. You're a great game master. Great. Number 1. Number 2, being part of the history of your game, where your players are just like, whoever that was, they were badasses, and they had their little
character's name.
Oh yeah,
I'll back off.
Lieutenant Remy LaRue. Hell yeah,
and some other guy,
and that other guy, yeah,
who made all the shots and planted all the explosives. Anyway,
get out of here. A plan that it wasn't about me, it wasn't about you. It's about the mission, and we were successful. We both died, but anyway. But being part of that though felt good. You know what I mean? And so I guess to speak to that, like, even when you're doing like one-offs, like, and a lot of people like to do things like, oh, we're just going to do a holiday, game, like the Halloween game, like that's a big thing, and everyone pulls out their Call of Cthulhu or whatever. Um, to speak to that, like how important is just those one-offs, but still connecting it to your world? Like how important is that? Does it add something? Is it just sort of a side thing? Like how do you view that?
I think what it adds is it anytime you can get more players into a thing, into the campaign, even if it's just for one shot, it kind of makes the world bigger for everybody. So the one shot people get to participate in something big that they didn't know about, but also the people in the campaign, because the sci-fi campaign, remember, is just 5 people just
Right.
every week.
Right.
But it made it it was so cool to them because they're like, oh, 4 people have joined in the story we've been telling. This made it bigger. It made it really cool it made it, oh, there's other places, there's other worlds, there's other crews, there's other things that are happening. There can be other things that happen, and that's a huge bit of depth that you get for not, I mean, it's cheap and it's fun. So I have a saying about depth, and I usually talk about game design when I'm talking about it, but it kind of applies for world building too. Depth is what you want. Complexity is the coin you use to pay for depth. So the more depth you can get for the least amount of added complexity, that's a good exchange. You see it in game design all the time. Somebody brings this like complex new set of rules or an expansion to a board game or something, and you're like, this is more depth. Like, there's more depth to this game now. They did something that was good game design in a vacuum, but has made the whole play experience much more complex, and so it has lost something. And when you're doing world building stuff, you can do so. The microscope is something that is a little added complexity. Now, if it's something you have fun with, that's fine, but you shouldn't feel like you have to add the complexity to be able to make a world. I think that's a big part of it. I think anytime that you can add more depth, like I said, without making the whole thing a little more without making it more complicated, just by, hey, this is just like pure, honest, fun depth that isn't expensive. That is a win to me. That's a huge win.
What would that look like mechanically, though? Like, I mean, I have my commentary, and I'm not gonna turn this into a leading question, which I completely have been doing because I've been drinking too much. But what would that look like from your perspective? Adding depth without adding complexity. What would that look like from a mechanical perspective?
So mechanically, you can do things to you can add more depth by so in the world building stuff, kind of going there, it's kind of a little bit of both. I start with a very small number of races available in a given region, but they can add more to the possible list of PC races as they make friends or as they make enemies. As they go through the area where they're talking. Like in this region where they had humans, Titan-blooded, and Fawn. So that was the 3 races. But they've allied with orc tribes, a few orc tribes, and those orc tribes have made it. They now have some orc PCs that they got it from allying with that. That added a lot of depth without having to be a lot more. There wasn't a lot more complexity that is there. They didn't change the rules. It didn't add the rules. They just now they have a backstory for the orcs rather than doing the complexity that would be me giving this whole backstory at the beginning. Well, so orcs are they're always chaotic and they're usually evil, but you can sometimes have exceptions, and this is where they're from, and this is all. Instead, they organically discovered that through play, and they don't have to interact with all orcs in the world. They don't know the deal of all the orcs yet. They haven't gone to those regions yet, but they've interacted with a few tribes. So they're able to get more gameplay out of this new race, that has its fun stuff without having to have a ton, without having all the stuff in the starting document. That was a big deal.
I remember actually talking to you a little bit about this
Mhm.
before. I love the fact that you've tied player options to the exploration pillar of the game. I think that's quite brilliant, and I think more game masters should do that. That way, you can avoid the lore dump, right? Like you might have in your mind, oh, I want orcs to be a player race. I want this to be a player character class, and I want this, and I want that. I want this, and I want ba 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 ba. Ba. But that's a lot to give to a player, right? Like a group of players. So you start them small, they start to branch out. Think about like even the Dragonlance series, right? Like you heard about the Knights of Solamnia, and Sturm was like your introduction. But once you got to Dragons of Winter Twilight, that's where you saw like all of the like the pomp and circumstance and all the hierarchy and all that. And when you look into the Dragonlance world, like you can see
Right.
like all the different character classes, but you wouldn't have seen that at first level. You would have just seen Knight of Solamnia. So I think that's great, and I like that. I like that a lot. I like tying that to the development of the world. I had a follow up question to this, and damn it, I forgot.
Well,
Here,
All right,
no,
you've been
here.
drinking. I have not been drinking.
Has a pretty good comment, like his version of there too. If you want to highlight that,
This one,
yeah,
I think so.
he was talking about it reasoning versus features. There, you can have basically. I like how he talks about you can make an NPC PC BBG deeper by having the reasons behind it. So the whole like player races thing, there's a reason why there's an orc in your party. That reason is not something that I give them. The reason is delivered by other players. Oh yeah, you're part of the Shattered Skull tribe. Like, yeah, we managed to capture a few of them. We made friends with some of them. Some of them are coming with us on adventures. They promise not to eat any more people. Like that's the backstory, and
Yep.
it's delivered organically by other players. Basically the world building has happened organically here without having me have to dump anything because I didn't plan that. I had it as an option. I mean, they could do something. You do have to, however, be willing to let them also screw things up. I had a potential way in the Sky Shadow Isles for them to play sentient wolves. There was a way to do that. There was a magical altar that was going to let them. The wolves were sentient and demon possessed. Basically, they met a few of them that had managed to lose the possessing demons, but they were still sentient. There was an altar that let them do that. If they had figured out how to make it happen, they could have had PCs that were sentient wolves. Instead, they broke open the altar to get the gem inside of it. They looted it for 5,000 gold, and they cracked it. They're like, "Oh crap!" Later, they realized, was there any other way? I was like, no way that I knew of. You have to be able to let them completely screw up stuff too. I was like, okay, that's fine. I had a way that this could have happened, but I mean, you made the decisions that happened. I let that happen. It's okay. You have to move on. And
But yeah, and that's kind of where like the game masters I guess selflessness, like quashing the ego from like a Buddhist perspective, right? Like I have this world, I did the thing, but now it's out of my hands, and you got to be prepared for it. Real quick, I got a Rumble rant from Atmost.
Get out of here.
It's just an emoji of Leonardo DiCaprio from some movie cheersing us. So thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. But yeah,
I did.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was doing something kind of similar where I like to start off, and I've done it more than once. Where like I'll limit the number of classes. Like in a regular D&D game, you can be humans, right? Elves, halflings, all that. You've got to maybe discover where they live, or we'll move this range. We'll open up the ranger class after you guys meet a ranger. Some kind of thing like that. And I think you've kind of hit it on the head. World building is not something that stops when you world build alone right up until your players play, but the world building that is the campaign. We say it so many times. The campaign is not about your character or your character's story. The campaign is about the world and the effect that you are, that your players are having upon that world. So the world building never really ends.
Well, and I also think like world building needs to take into consideration the rule set that you're dealing with. So could you speak to that? Like how do you approach that? Like you're dealing with a rule set that have rangers, for example, or you're dealing with a rule set that has berserkers. Like, do you write them off? Like, do you write them in? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so you kind of have to decide what you're comfortable with, and it can be all kinds of. It can be basically, it's kind of up to the DM how he wants to do it. It's up to the DM how many options he wants. I'm all for limiting options if you want, but if you're looking at a rule set, you should probably be considering the rule set you're using, not just because the rule set you're using changes who you get as players, but it also changes how those players are interacting with the world. So I've also done that with classes too, by the way. I've had classes that are not available until they made friends. They can't be the ranger type person until they actually make friends and allies with the Lost Tribe clans. They couldn't do that. There was no way they could do that. That was not a class option for them. But you probably should also do the world building in a way that is compatible with your D&D, whatever the D&D is. Like the whole Coldlight magic thing with the scribing mathematical artistic ink. It's cool. It gives some aspects that are interesting with spell prep, and there's some subtle differences there, but I very specifically made a magic system. We very specifically had a magic system there that is you wake up and prepare spells in the morning. They last for a day. Like it sets up for Vancian casting very well. It mixes with Vancian casting very well. There's other worlds where D&D is not the right rule set. D&D is not, like a Final Fantasy style world.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Points and all that. I would not want to do that in D&D. I would not, if that's the kind of world you want to have.
Yeah.
You don't need a D&D game with that. I'm kind of scratching my head for what you would use ideally for that. And clearly, like D&D informed lots of Final Fantasy, but I would not use D&D as the default rule set for that. So you have to be very careful. You have to know, commenter Jesse there is making a point that you do have to be careful about what balance, if you're affecting balance by limiting what your choices are. You have to have an idea of what you have to have. You have to keep consciousness of what the balance is, and talk about old school versus new school. Limiting stuff in 5e would be really bad in a lot of ways, because limiting stuff in 5e is assuming, I think 5e is kind of assuming a 5-man band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of assuming that you have this, you have the healer, the tank, the ranged, and the wizard, and a rogue. You have to have all of that. You're sort of assuming all of that. So you do have to say, okay, is this a world compatible with that? You do have to kind of at the outset, because the kind of world, basically, I guess this is where Rob was also getting in trouble with, using the S word, story. But different stories do emerge. You have to be aware of what stories are being told based on the system. Like the Shadowrun stories are very different from Call of Cthulhu stories, like Warp Plots would say. There is a big difference in the system really does matter when you choose that. So either you start with a system first and then figure out the world, or start with the world first and then make sure that the system you pick is compatible with that world. You need to make sure that you're not fighting against it. If you do, you're going to be starting to add more and more homebrew rules. It's going to get wonky, and in the end, it's going to be something unrecognizable from the original. And there's a 15-page change document that you give to any new player, which, I mean, it works, and in some ways, that's kind of traditional. That is.
Oh yeah.
But
I think.
so you know, that is something you're signing up to do.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think that's just something you're going to. Game masters like doing that sort of thing. But I think at the end of the day, what you're getting at, system kind of does matter, right? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And start from there.
Yep. I mean, you also have the problem of, some system, and you have to be careful with, you do have to know the game design. Mothership's actually, I feel like, a good example of something that is kind of in conflict with itself. The Mothership core rulebook has the tomb cycle. It has great, talk about horror games. It keeps talking about designing horror. It wants to be alien when you hear it. And then you look at the mechanics, and a lot of the mechanics feel like they're designed for aliens.
Yes.
It talks about wanting to be playing alien, but then the mechanics are aliens. And those are very different things. I mean, this is not me dissing aliens, please. But
I'm with you. Like, I am a huge, I got my
One's a horror movie,
alien
one's
stuff. I got
movie.
it all there.
Flat out.
No, I'm with you, brother. No, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Systemism, I wish there was a way. I keep trying to think of an argument. No, system doesn't matter. And I hear people say system doesn't matter all the time, but that's just not true. It's just not. And limiting 5e, I think limiting the classes, I think you're right. Yeah, I don't think that would work. We're starting up this Supers game, and we were making characters last night, and I had to remind people, I'm like, hey guys, you got to remember that all your ideas are real fun, but there's this mechanic called karma. Like, you got to do good guy shit. That's just the way it works. That is the way this game works. You have to do good guy stuff, or you're not going to succeed. And you get rid of that mechanic, and it's just not anywhere near the same game.
Yeah.
It's a vigilante system at that point. It's a different system.
Yeah. It's an action movie.
Not even just a different system, it's a different game. It's a different experience. I was just talking to Gary before we started this stream, like a few hours ago. I was like, the character I rolled up, kind of random, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And Thursday night, I was like, I guess this guy is kind of like whatever. He's got this weird eye that grew in his forehead. I guess I'm kind of a criminal, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm like, I want to play a fucking superhero. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to
That's
the point. I want to play a fucking superhero. So I'm rethinking. I purposely rethought the way I approached it. Now, what's interesting is in an OSR system, pure OSR, I have this character class. Everything I came up with would be perfect for a dude that's going out, getting treasure, getting the thing to help him gain experience points, whatever. And I already have those characters. So at the end of the day, like, the system you end up choosing, I think, will help define your campaign. Now, the question is, how does the campaign intersect with the world? Like, are they the same thing? Or are they shades of one another? That's my question.
Ben, no.
I feel like they play. I mean, they play to each other. So basically, they'll play into each other a lot. And as your system, as your system affects as your system, as you play the system, it's going to affect the world. There's something very cynical about. There's something that's going to be very fundamentally cynical about gold for XP
Sure.
kind of style systems, where even it's hard to play a proper paladin or cleric of law in an old school system.
Yeah.
You really have to kind of think about what that means, because that old school system is very much about the world rewards you going in and plundering tombs.
Yeah.
These are not like that's not fundamentally like the Catholic Church doesn't actually approve of people plundering most ossuaries and tombs.
Yeah.
That's not usually an approved. That's not usually something they give you experience points for. That's not usually something that they would reward. So you have to kind of think about it. So if you are going to compensate for that, and you can compensate for that, then you need to figure, okay, so maybe the tomb is evil. The tomb has to be evil. You have to think about, okay, well, that means we're going to have a lot of evil tombs. It has to be the kind of place, this has to be the kind of world where these tombs were built, but they're corrupted, and you have to go in there. You have to think through that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that world building right there, that would set me on a whole world. Why are they? I've always, like, in real life, I struggle to understand the logic behind dungeons. You know what I mean? Like, they just fucking don't make sense. But they're evil. They have to be evil because we're gonna have paladins in the party. Okay, well, fuck, if they're evil. Well, why are they evil? And then from there, that's where you start answering questions for yourself, and that world is growing. Well, because back in the day, like you said, somebody to spell or what have you. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Ben, I should be taking better notes, to tell you the honest truth, when you speak. You say things, and all I have back at you is, yeah, that's like that one time. Fuck yeah, Ben.
Oh no. So Gary, I didn't know if you were aware of this. This is being recorded.
I know, but I don't watch myself. Do you ever go back and watch yourself? I never go back and watch myself.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm a regular listener to Second Watch. I never watch it. Like I listen.
That's the move right there.
I don't watch.
That is the move.
So I listen to you guys every week, but I'm not if you have all kinds of presentations or if you have people wearing silly hats, I don't know, because I'm a listener, not a watcher.
We are the most lo-fi live stream possible. And
I've seen worse, bro. I've seen worse. That's bullshit.
We're doing all right then in that case. But yeah, Ben, that means you're one of the many listeners, viewers who are taking a gander at what we do after the fact. But yeah,
no, it is kind of cool though. Like if you do nail the world building, it really feels super cool. Like the Cairn of Night mega dungeon, kind of going there because it feels like it felt really good when people were kind of realizing it. That was a classic case of descending. It's a descending style mega dungeon. So you start out with just like this mine,
right?
It kind of breaks into an ancient complex that goes into this deeper cathedral, that goes into this massive underplane, that goes into this vast fortress. So you're leveling up as you go down. It's built with level stuff in mind, which doesn't make sense if you're looking at like most places, right? But in this case, this whole place is a defense system for that gate to the abyss at the very bottom of it.
Right.
Of course, the most badass things are there at the bottom. Of course, everything is designed to defend downwards. And I had a fun time designing the dungeon because it's designing a massive layered fortification that is all looking downwards. So you're kind of coming in from the back part of the fortification. So it's getting harder and more difficult because you're going lower and lower into the deeper and the heavier fortifications. And
Mhm.
the players at first were like, they're like, dee 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 dee. Oh, cool. There's a fun complex. Oop, that's weird. There's some defenses here. Huh. This is a minor thing.
Right.
But they started seeing as they went deeper and deeper and deeper, they started having this. Well, the best thing was when they came to the realization, which wasn't until they got to the final fortress, like starting at that level, they're like, hey guys, have we been systematically dismantling the world's defense system? Like, have we been systematically just ripping through the defenses that are designed to stop a demonic invasion? And that moment of aha, like that's world building success. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
great. But it had and that kind of comes again to the patience thing. That took 3 years of coming
Yeah.
back and exploring.
Man.
Yeah. You have to be confident and committed to your vision to do something like that, right?
I'm actually
But at the same time, going back to like the Buddhist thing, like the mandala sand things where they spend hours building this like beautiful thing that's just amazing, and then when they're done they just fucking destroy it. Like you got to be willing to do that too. Like that's why I say like the game master has to be kind of selfless, right? So but yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That those moments I think is just great.
And that is, Brian often talks to me about, man, Gary, I feel so bad for you because you haven't had a long-term campaign that lasts more than, he's always feeling bad for me about that. But you actually give a good argument for it because a lot of times I'm like, I don't like doing the same thing for years on end. But, that is the thing about those long-term campaigns. It's that discovery, that the patience and waiting and we'll see if I'm ever patient enough to do that. But
Well,
it sounds like fun.
Yeah. Well, for me, that also helped that it wasn't one thing.
Yeah.
Because a mega dungeon would get, so for me at least, a mega dungeon would get tiresome if that was what we did every single week. But it helped that it was in, once again, a huge region where there was tons of hexes to crawl. There were other dungeons around. So as they weren't like, it wasn't like it was a case of, all right, we're going to go just a little further in the mega dungeon today. It actually became seasonal in the wintertime when it was darker and it was harder to explore overland. That's when they were more likely to go, like when it was snowy and cold and dark.
That's interesting.
Like now is the delving season. So that's kind of, again, it just took time,
Yeah.
but because it varied it, I'm with you. Stonehell is a mastery of game design. It is genius. I would go mad running just Stonehell.
Well,
Because
I was gonna say, Matt, how long were you doing Temple of?
Yeah. So I ran on this channel. I since changed that. You can find it on Rumble. But I ran Temple of Elemental Evil for 3 years using Lamentations of the Flame Princess. But that was more of a hex crawl with like the mega dungeon kind of like being like the goal. Going
How
to
long were y'all in the dungeon though? Weren't y'all in the dungeon for like 2 years or something?
No, it was more like a year. The first
Okay.
2 years were just exploring like the hex map, and once they got to the mega dungeon. But to be fair, they didn't explore the whole thing. Like they got to a point, they found her, and the players, because it took on like a religious sort of like crusade.
Mhm.
The Arn god, that was the name of the people, the Arns. It's a monotheistic religion. They had their like crusaders go in and they convinced them to strap gunpowder kegs to their backs. And so when they found Yukmatoi,
Okay.
the mushroom goddess who's at the heart of the Temple of Elemental Evil, they convinced them to blow themselves up. So they were shouting, "This is gonna get me canceled." They were shouting, "Arn Akbar!" And they were running forward and blowing up. It was awesome. It was a great ending of the game. But yeah,
Good
it was
God.
good. It was good. But point I'm trying to
Oh,
We lost Matt.
we
Hey,
lost Matt's
right
audio.
here.
Oh, there you are.
There you are.
Okay.
Yeah, your
So,
audio cut out.
we're having like rolling blackouts actually here in Western New York.
Your mic's
So
fucked up though. You're on your computer mic, not your mic.
oh god.
Sorry, bro. I heard
No,
it
no, no. Just no. How about now?
better.
Yeah.
I lost my question.
I figured.
Yeah.
This is really we
You were
should
talking
never do
about
this ever
elemental
again.
evil. You were talking about elemental evil suicide keg bombers.
Yes,
Yes.
suicide kick.
Where was I going with this? I don't even remember.
Oh, no.
Well,
I'm drinking
I-
next week. You're sober, bro. This
Okay,
shows her.
whatever. It's good. It's good.
So, no, I like it. When, world building, back to world building, something practical. Tonight, somebody's going to say, you know what? I want to start a new campaign. I want to build a world. They're going to pull out some paper and a pen. What would you start doing? Like,
Great question. What's step
just
number
first, step number one, what are you doing with your time?
Well, first thing I'm doing is doodling a map. That's the first thing I'm
one?
making.
Map is first. Interesting.
That's actually what I would start with. Did I mention the thing I do with the map, the overland map?
No.
I have the overland map. I use I write it in pencil or pen. I can recommend. There's a book called Drawing Fantasy Maps for World Builders. I actually bought the book. It's great for learning how to illustrate these things. It was great. But I use these big easel style sheets, and I have 3 or 4 of them to make the world map, the region map that they're going to be in. I draw out the entire thing. That's the first thing I do. I make that campaign map. I draw it out. I scan it so that I can start populating it and figuring out what things are. And then I take cotton balls and tape and cover up the entire map. And I slap that sucker on the table for them. They have the map in front of them. They have the entire they have the entire region in front of them. A big chunk of that, except for where they're kind of starting, is all covered up by clouds, by those cotton balls. And a huge motivation is removing those cotton balls.
Bro, that is such a good. I'm in this whole thing.
That's a
right
great
now.
idea.
I'm trying to find more tactile. I'm playing with kids,
Mhm.
so I'm trying to find more tactile ways to get them involved. And that sounds great. That is awesome. Damn, Ben, why don't you will you be here next week for us? Anyway, so you start. So that's great. So you start with a map. Now I find that when I start drawing a map, if I don't have any kind of concept, I'm just kind of doodling a map or whatever. I find a lot of times I'll start getting ideas because of the map. Do you typically have an idea of what the world is, or are you discovering it as you do it, or a little bit of both?
I usually have an idea of what I'm doing before I start doodling, but then I'll always be adding details because I'm also a geography nerd. I know okay, well, actually there'd be a river down here from these mountains to where it goes here. So along this river, there would be a city. So because there's a city here, this is where the politics would be. This is where you'd expect to be. This is where the dragon would be loving to kill caravans, because it's fantastical, have fun stuff.
Mhm.
I actually, in my current map, I built a bay, and I was like, wait a minute, this bay is kind of circular. Nope, I need more circle here, 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 here. And so it looks like what you see from a map of like a meteor bombardment. I was like, yeah, that's where the angels fell. That is definitely. I was like, oh yeah, there's some stuff here, and this is where the main city of this region once was. And so that kind of so it's a little bit of both. I had a general idea for what the region was, but then I also was like, oh no, I have an idea from here. I was like, oh no, this is definitely where the angel, Angels are
Yeah.
falling from heaven and making huge impact craters, and that's kind of where all these lakes are kind of forming. And so that gives me ideas more for the history and more for where people are. That's where all of that kind of comes. And so it's a lot of fun.
No, yeah, I hear you. The last big map I drew, which this part of the campaign world, the whole reason the map was being drawn, my players got nowhere near it. But I was thinking about Castle Grayskull. This is going to seem silly, right? It seemed like, why the fuck would you build a castle with a big skull on it? What's the story behind that? You know, like, why? What is this? And then I started thinking, and so I drew the castle, and I realized, well, you know what? This is actually backed up into a mountain. Why is it backed up into? I don't know why it's backed up into a mountain, but it starts like with a question, or sometimes a concept, but a lot of times it's just, I wonder what it would be like if. And the geography a lot of times answers, you know, it does answer that question. Here's the
Right.
water, here's the gold, here's the timber. You know, apply a little Catan to your campaign map and you're good to go.
Exactly.
I mean, right? Seems too simple, but I think it works. And I think that's one of the things that Macris, you know, when he's taking into account markets and stuff like that, you know, he's looking at that. There's also another really great book. It's for OSC. I want to say it's called Into the Wild. I have
Sounds
to look this
familiar.
up. Yeah, it's one of these big omnibuy that this guy wrote, which is it's every hex. He's doing mile hexes, but you know the geography, each step informs every other step. So anyway, that's about all I got, Matt. I can't carry this shit anymore. We got 13 minutes. Ben, sell some shit, bro. You got a book. What do you got?
I've been doing stuff. Yeah. So
What
Karen and I,
have you
He's been doing a lot
Yeah.
of stuff.
Fill us in on the non-gaming. You're like an author. What's going on?
well, so I will actually kind of, it's kind of close to the time where I should probably start mentioning this because I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about kickstarting that mega dungeon I was mentioning
Oh, go ahead.
because I wrote that entire hex map region. I have it all keyed. I have keyed the entire mega dungeon keyed. I have everything written. I hate formatting. I don't have any art. And I was like, and I was thinking, you know, to get this kind of out to where it deserves to be, I should probably run a Kickstarter for this thing because, so I'm looking at maybe doing it late this year or like the first month or two of next year. Doing a mega dungeon, I'm probably thinking about Acts 2 as the system, as the default system for that, just because it has all the system support you need. And it translates really well to BX if you want to do BX style stuff too. So that's on my to-do list plan, just kind of mentioning that as it goes along. Because I mean that'll probably coincide around the same time as the fourth adventure site contest, which I'm definitely going to be doing that this year too. So that's on the gaming side. On the writing side, so as Matt mentioned at the start, my wife Karen and I write together as BK Gibson. Freedom's Vow is the first book in the Shepherd trilogy. It is recently released. If you want to go ahead and get that, it is both available physical, which Matt has, or you also have it on Kindle. If you're a Kindle Unlimited person, you can get it there too. It's available on Amazon. We have the entire trilogy written. The next one's coming out in October or November, depending on the production, that last bit of the editing side. So the second one's done there. We finished the entire trilogy though, and then the next one is currently in revisions. So we have the whole trilogy written. We've been working on that. It's been a lot of fun. Like, please go buy the book because it is. It's everybody who's bought it has enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun to do it. It has a Hellenistic Bronze Age kind of a world, but it is epic fantasy in the classic vein. So it's been great to listen to people just as they do it. I've been like, oh yes, they get it. Like everybody who's read it so far has been like, oh yes, they've been talking about this and that, and they've been like, they get it. I've been really enjoying that. It's been a lot of fun to see, and it tells its own story. Like it's not. That's the other thing. So Karen and I do not believe in the half a story release of novels. Even though there's a trilogy and there's more stuff in it, it also tells a complete story. Because there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than reading a book that I'm super into, I'm really enjoying, and then it stops. And it's like, for the conclusion of the story, buy this in 6 months. I cannot stand that. Even
kind of like
15, 16 years to finish the last few chapters of their book that everybody's been fucking waiting for, because he knows that no matter what he does, there's going to be a group of people who hate it. It will never be good enough.
All right,
and he needs to just deal with it. He needs to just deal with it. Sorry.
Or the guy who writes like this really compelling dark fantasy series, and then he gets like a big HBO deal, and then we're left hanging, and then we get screwed in the 8th season. I'm just hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
But that's basically. For me, it's kind of like an ethical thing. I want to tell a complete story, no matter what we're doing.
Well,
so
and that kind of ties into world building, though, right? Like you want to present something that people can like embrace, get into, and they have this thing that they get to follow, and then the next thing, right?
It's also just a quality thing. Being a comic book fan, there's a lot of artists who can't draw feet, right? So they never fucking draw feet.
Like that guy from the 90s.
The guy. A lot of guys. A lot of writers can't. A lot of writers can't land. They can't plant the landing. They just don't get it.
So we finished this. Don't worry. It's both this novel comes to a conclusion itself, and the trilogy is also finished. Although neither one of us can draw feet. So
no, well, you know what I'm saying though. Some people there's just some shit you can't do. You're great at, people be good at everything, but every book should have an ending. Sorry, even if it's in a trilogy, every book should have an ending. Every comic book, even though it's going to go for 1,000 issues, every issue should have a fucking ending.
This needs to go on a T-shirt. Every comic book needs to be able to draw feet.
Yes.
Thanks, Gary.
Warped has some stuff on that one, but we're not getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're having fun with other projects too. Like, I can say it now. So this is kind of as an aside from Karen and I have a lot of books we've written and a lot of stuff. We're working with Raconteur Press, who've published some of our we've been published in their anthologies before. They have a line of what they're calling boys books, because YA is a poison term that means it's written for 40-year-old ladies who want to imagine their teenage selves being into sexy vampires.
Yes,
that's what YA means now.
Yep.
But yes, you know exactly what it means. But they have a middle grade. They have a middle grade. They're doing middle grade novels for boys, like boys adventure. And we wrote a book called Wonders Beneath that is a boy's adventure. It's about, a kid and his two best friends on a school trip into a cave system, and there is an avalanche, and then they start going deeper and deeper and deeper into the earth, and they discover incredible wonders under there, a completely different world and ecology. It's very Jules Verne, but it's also, because I'm biology nerd as well, it also has really it has all the geothermal science fiction, all the biology stuff in there too. I am super excited about that one. It's not coming out till late next year, but that is also, I wrote it for the boys. We did this because we have boys. We wanted boys to have adventure stuff.
Please remind us when that goes live
and
you're ready to publish, because I have, as you know, I have a son. He's kind of into gaming and stuff, and I'm not trying to be that guy that forces stuff onto him, so I let him kind of do his own thing. But he's a great reader when he does read, and he retains information, and he's got great scores. He's so amazing with his creative stuff. And I'm like, really? because I'm constantly competing with YouTube and video and this, that, and the other thing. And at the end of the day, boys aren't reading because people aren't writing for them.
Well, we
so
wrote for them.
please let me know. I will. Please let me know, because that's amazing.
So you should check out the. You can check out Raconteur Press. Raconteur is like storyteller. I can recommend them. They already have, like, we're going to be like one of the things they've done in a line, and they've done other just boys adventure stuff. It's like, we don't care about romantic crap. We don't care about, the point is boys having adventures.
Yes.
I've read some of their other stuff to my boys, and they have loved it so much. They have been so enthusiastic. Just like, it's like classic stuff. Like you remember the old Highline Juveniles kind of stuff, where have spacesuit will travel, like that kind of stuff. Like, it's so cool. And
Mars.
yes,
that was my stuff growing up, man.
It's so good. And so I'm super happy. Like, Karen and I wrote that. We were very excited. So Shellback Bow is recommending G.A. Henty. He's from the Victorian era. He was a long time ago. But he's like Karen's favorite author growing up. I loved
really? That's fantastic. Okay.
I didn't read as much as she did, but like both of us enjoyed it. He had just historical fiction. Raconteur Press has, like, they just released one of their ones is Boy Against the Boxers. It's like historical, like a fictional kid, but in the Boxer Rebellion.
Okay.
China. Like that, very G.A. Henty stuff. So ours is kind of more of a sci-fi fantastical thing, but I'm really enthusiastic about anything that gets, because I have sons, boys to reads, and the dirty little secret is our daughter kind of prefers that stuff too. Like, she would much like, we also have a girl, and she also likes reading. Like, I don't want this mushy, like, I want adventure. Like, she wants like fun, adventurous stories. So I'm super excited about that one too. Like, that's what's upcoming, and I'll let you know, because like, as a dad, that excites me. But yeah, like, if anybody like who's watched this is interested, actually, I was going to say Freedom's Vow. So, talking about like a parent kind of thing, it is written for adults. I would never use the word adult book, because that has other implications.
Right.
Sure.
But it is, I would say, like, so I would not let our 7-year-old read it, but our 13-year-old read it, and it was fine. I mean, it's intense, it's violent, but there's also not like subversive crap in it, and there's not like, it is something that a teenager could, you don't have to worry too much about a teenager reading there too, because again, we have kids. We like writing for the, like I read all kinds of really great adult novels for, like, when I was a kid like that too. And so Freedom's Vow is also along that lines of, hey, let's have an adventure.
Yeah. Well, going back to my misbegotten youth, even like the edgier shit that I was reading, like, it was about taking you somewhere, and it was about challenging you and making you think, like if this really happened, how would I handle that? Like, and I think that those kind of questions help you kind of sort of develop, right? And again, not to get too political, but we haven't seen a lot of that for boys, right? So I think it's great that you and your wife are taking that mantle on and providing that. So fantastic. Please let us know. You'll be on the second watch again.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, as you were talking about writing stories for boys, throughout this evening, I've been getting updates because my kids are camping with Grandpa. One of the updates is it's pitch black. The lights have gone out. The boys are in the water. I hope they're okay. 10 minutes later, there's a fire in the distance. I think that's them. So.
Yep.
That's boys. I love
Yep.
it.
That's boy.
That is, I love that. I absolutely love that.
I just like how that mom's like, I hope they're okay.
Yeah. So Karen is a really good boy mom in that she says her official policy is, I approve of this. I want you to be men and have adventures. Please don't tell your mother about this. Which I'm like, that is a completely fair. That is being a good mom. That is a completely fair request for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I when it was just me and Ivan I say just me and Ivan would go to his mom's like a couple days a week, but mostly it was just me and him. I remember he came back from a visit with his mom once and he goes, hey, mom says there's questions I'm supposed to ask you, but not her. And I said, I know exactly of what she speaks. Come here, son.
And then you explain to him how to make napalm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Orange juice and kitty litter. Come on.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's really great that y'all do that. And I hope that I hope that there's more of that, man. You know, you were saying earlier, you know, the Heinlein juveniles I was born too late for them. None of my friends knew about them, but I was just lucky. I had a good uncle, you know, who fed me that stuff. And then you had the Dragonland stories. And then I remember in school, we used to read like Treasure Island and 10,000 or whatever leagues under the sea. It was
you know what story that I remember like the most is called The K. It's just about like this kid and this black dude who got fucking like there was like I think it was like a ship got wrecked or whatever. They're lost at sea and then they find an island and they have to survive and the kid is blind and shit. And it's not like your pulp adventure, but I remember it because it was like a boy forced to become a man. Like you don't get those nowadays. Anyway, I don't know.
Also, be careful what you give to your kids, because when I was 14, 15, I got handed the electric Kool-Aid acid test, followed by, you know, Fear and Loathing, On the Road.
Well, I found that shit. My parents
be
didn't.
careful
I
what you give to your
shit.
boys.
I found that shit on my own. But I think that just goes to our Gen X. We just kind of did our own thing. So, but we are at the 2-hour mark. Ben, give us our spotlights on you, brother. World building. Sum it up to a would-be GM who wants to do his own thing. What would you recommend?
The thing is, do it and have fun. Like, and I don't care. Don't worry about perfection. Just freaking do it. Put it in front of other players and let them completely pee all over it. Don't worry about it. And then come up with more stuff. That's
I like that.
Shot. And one other thing before we leave, if you're worried about your world making sense, next week we're going to have on Mr. Welch to talk about Mystara. I'm very excited about this. I love Mystara. I love Mr. Welch's videos.
I do too.
If you're worried that your world might not make sense and maybe your players won't like it, go fucking look at a Mystara world map and explain to me how any of that makes sense. All right?
We have Vikings, we got Arabs, we got pirates, we got everything's all over the place. Mystara is the shit. I have a lot of nostalgia for there, and Mr. Welch is like a huge, like I can't wait for it. So I hope to see everyone there in the chat next week. But with all that said, Ben, thank you for joining us yet again on the second watch. You're like addicted. You might need to find like a program
after this
or something.
Show, man, I'm not sure he's coming back. This is a rough one, bro. Listen, Ben, I promise next time you come on, I'm getting drunk and he's staying sober. Okay, that's just the way it'll work. The show will be much smoother.
No. Anyway.
It's funnier this way.
Yeah.
But with that said, our watch is ended. Folks, next week, we hope to see you. Take care. Happy 4th of July. 250 years of awesomeness. Take care, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Remember the most important rule of fireworks safety, everybody. Have fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good rule, but you know what? We'll go with it.
It doesn't hurt once you blow it off. Like a finger comes
Indeed.
off, it won't hurt anymore.
We have 911 on speed dial, so whatever.
Dude, get up. I think I heard